So my name is Pastor CJ Fury. CJ stands for Clayton James. But so I had a question. Fury, that's not a German last name. So my dad is from New York, grew up Catholic, and my mom's from Cudahy, Wisconsin. So she went to like MLPS and stuff like that. And they met in Austin at the University of Texas. And I don't even know where I was going with this. But so Fury, it's an Italian name. So I've got a little bit, but I do have some German heritage too, so don't worry about it. But that doesn't matter. So the sower sows his reckless love. One of the ladies at lunch was talking about how mission work isn't about us, right? Mission work is about the work of Jesus. And the reason why the sower, this capital S, appears, because I'm not the sower, right? In some sense, you and I, we are sowers, right? In that we're trying to plant gospel seeds in our communities, and yet the sower is Christ. The sower, he sows his reckless love. I stole that from one of my favorite hymns. You can meditate on these words maybe later. We won't go through the whole hymn, but hymn 895 in our new hymnal, Preach You the Word. And verse 3 starts out, the sower sows his reckless love, scatters abroad the goodly seed, intent alone that there may be the wholesome leaves that people need. And this is really what I'm going to talk about, is Jesus recklessly, without abandon, sowing the seed of his word in Conway, Arkansas. But first, a little bit about me. So this is my family. That's my wife, Lauren. And on the right, a girl and a boy. So our daughter, Evie, Evangeline. Evie is 21 months old. And there's her little brother, which you wouldn't believe it, 5-month-old Japheth. So Evangeline, we call her Evie, and Japheth. But this is my beautiful family. They were brave enough, I guess Lauren and Evie, to move down to Conway, Arkansas with me when I was assigned out of the seminary. And then Japheth is a native Conwegian. That's what you call someone, a Conwegian. So we're very proud of the fact that we're going to raise Arkansas babies. But I grew up in Houston, Texas at Christ the Lord Lutheran Church. My whole life, grew up in Texas. Loved it. So proud to be a Texan. And yet there's this thing that's really neat. When you get assigned to be a pastor somewhere, you fall in love with where you are. I'm going to be honest with you. Growing up as a Texan, I never in a million years thought that I'd be in Arkansas. And I never in a million years would have thought that I would love Arkansas. But we truly have grown to love the community we're in the state that we are now in. At the seminary, I got to vicar at Christ Lutheran Church in Denver, Colorado. So this is Christ in Denver. And the neat thing, growing up at Christ the Lord in Houston, Christ the Lord is a bilingual church. And so I got to grow up in a bilingual church. Christ in Denver, Colorado is also a bilingual church. So despite the fact that I speak Spanish at like a second or kindergarten grade level, I still got to preach every sermon that year in Spanish. Very humbling for me. But that was a wonderful congregation to be at. And Pastor Paul Biedenbender there, my bishop, was a great man to learn under. But then, in May of 2024, I graduated. And there might be a familiar face up there. Don't try to find me. I probably look awkward in my picture. But I graduated just like 17 months ago. And when you graduate from Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary, the Lord Jesus assigns you to serve as pastor somewhere. And right now, with the whole 110 initiative and all these things going on in our synod that we're so blessed by, there's a big emphasis on missions at the seminary. And so I had thought about, what would it be like to be called to a home mission? What would it be like to be a church planter, to start a brand new church from scratch? But I don't think I was anticipating Jesus to call me to that. And yet that's exactly what he did. So on call day, 2024, May of 24, Clayton Fury, new mission start, Conway, Arkansas. And it's like, where is Conway, Arkansas? Well, there it is. Right smack dab in the middle of the state. If you've ever been to Little Rock, it's about 45 minutes north. But like the interstates are out here in Oklahoma, the speed limits are pretty high out there in Arkansas too. So it's actually probably like 30 miles north of Little Rock, and it's its own city. It isn't a suburb, has no really attachment to Little Rock. It's its own city. They're very proud of their city. The city of colleges. So the big university is the University of Central Arkansas. It's the third biggest university in Arkansas. But then Hendrix College and Central Baptist College, those are also there. The best way I can describe Conway, Arkansas is it is your typical all-American southern town, just through and through. But it's growing, and they don't know what to do about that. For the longest time, Conway was just, your southern city for the longest time it was about 50, 60,000. Now it's getting up to 80, 90,000. And as far as cities go, Northwest Arkansas as a region is growing faster, but Conway is one of, if not the fastest growing city in the state of Arkansas. And so that's a part of why the well said, if we're going to plant a church in Central Arkansas, let's plant the church in Conway. We've loved getting to know our city. It's a wonderful place to raise a family. There's that part of the All-American. They have a saying, they say they're Conway America. The people in Conway are so proud of Conway. They love the fact that their city is this wonderful place to live. And so if you're going to be an outsider who's going to come into Conway, you can really earn some brownie points for yourself if you really immerse yourself into the community. And we'll talk about a little bit of that in a second. Just want to share a few things about Conway. There's downtown. So, you are told by your district president and your district mission board and your mission counselor and various things in home missions, hey, move to Conway, Arkansas. There's a wonderful core group waiting there for you. You're worshiping in a Holiday Inn Express. Go start a church. And it's like, wait, what? What am I supposed to do? So you move. I moved there, and I didn't have an office. And I've heard from enough people that I know some people can do this very well, and especially in today's day and age, but I decided I don't want to work from home. I think it's good to maybe, and so I was like, well, where should I work? And talking to a lot of guys who have done this same thing, they said, go find a co-working space. And so this is the studio downtown. It's right in downtown Conway. And it's been a great thing for me, A, because it gave me an office right from the get-go, a space to go do my work, but then also a co-working space. Really, the only reason I go now is just to see people. And I had to realize that as I moved to this new place, I'm a complete outsider. I don't have any friends. I don't know anyone. That really the first months of my ministry were just trying to make friends, just trying to get to know people, and not necessarily to right away scatter those gospel seeds, but even just to start to slowly gain trust and to meet people. And it's kind of a natural thing, right? Like when you move to a new place, you want to find community. You want to find friends. You want to find family, right? Especially when you're an isolated family like we were. And so this was a cool place to do so. I also love football. Grew up playing football, loving watching football. And so they had this youth football league, and I just called the commissioner, probably one of the first weeks that I was down there, and I said, hey, do you by any chance have any openings for a coach? He said, oh yeah, the Titans don't have a coach. And so one of the first things I did as a pastor was coach this youth football team. I guess this is kind of a spoiler alert. Multiple coaches and players were at our launch service. I thought I was sitting there hanging out with a bunch of guys, coaching football, having a good time. And yet those gospel seeds were slowly being sown. Probably one of the hardest things about being a brand new seminary graduate who's assigned to start this new ministry is you don't do things that typical pastoral or you don't do things that look like typical pastoral ministry when you get there. This is kind of a whole other conversation, but it was recommended, and so we did this, that when I first got there, that we didn't necessarily have your typical worship service every Sunday, and that we might not have a midweek Bible study every Sunday. And so it's not that I have all these hours in my week to write a sermon and to write a Bible study and to do these things. And I'll be honest with you, there was a lot of guilt that I had at first about those things. Because the way that I would go about my work week, the way that I would go about my work, I didn't get to check off the box of, all right, I did my text study and I wrote my sermon and I wrote Bible study. Instead, work was try to go meet random people. Try to go coach football. Try to go do this or that. And especially coming from our seminary, which holds a special place in my heart, where you have assignments and homework and tests and papers all the time, right? These boxes to check. Got that done, got that done, got that done. Now all of a sudden, you're assigned to this ministry and there's no box to be checked. You can't say, yep, got that done. That person was saved, or that person came to faith, or, I made that relationship. And so it was a little bit uncomfortable for me, something that I had to learn, that at least for a time, my ministry was atypical. It just didn't look the way that I thought pastoral ministry looked. This is the Rogue Roundabout. It's our favorite restaurant in Conway. It's also a brewery. Now, the thing about Central Arkansas, and Arkansas in particular, that I wasn't expecting is Arkansas actually has the most dry counties of any state in the United States. And our county, Faulkner County, is one of them. Well, how do you have a brewery in a dry county? Well, that's a whole other thing. But it's actually fascinating just to get to know people, right? They have all sorts of, every night they have some kind of a bingo or a trivia or a live music or this or that. And so Lauren and I, we said, well, we might as well just go, right? We might as well go to the trivia nights. We might as well go listen to some live music, and slowly and surely making friends with people there and getting to know people. And so really the first 6 months of my ministry were it's hard to even believe that they happened, that it felt like complete randomness. It felt like each day I would wake up and, I have no idea what I'm going to do today. That's not really the case. I do plan my weeks, right? But that's kind of how it felt. Like this all feels so random. Many times it would feel very pointless, meaningless. I'm not telling people about Jesus. I'm not opening up the Bible with people. I'm not preaching sermons. What am I even doing? And it was easy for me to kind of feel like a fraud, right? That here the Lwms has assigned me, that God has sent me to this position to be a pastor here in this community, to share Jesus and to tell people about the gospel, sometimes for the very first time, and there just wasn't any of that going on for a long time. So I felt like, what am I even doing? So I decided to start to try to plug into the community even more, to kind of double down on trying to find ways to connect with our brand new community. One thing that makes Conway, Arkansas super unique is that our Chamber of Commerce, for some reason, punches way above its weight. So Conway, Arkansas is a town of about 80,000, and it has a budget larger than Madison, Wisconsin. Like the Conway Chamber of Commerce, it won the Chamber of Commerce of the Year award in 2023. The Conway Chamber of Commerce is the reason why Conway is what it is. And it's a huge part of the city and the culture and the environment there. And so there was this leadership class called Conway Area Leadership Institute that somebody recommended to me, that said, hey, you want to learn about this place? Go take that class. And so what it is it's 1 or 2 sessions a month where you get together with about 40 leaders in the community, and it's kind of makes me feel strange because it's like, what do you mean I'm a leader in the community? I just moved here. Nobody knows me. But it's, bankers and business people and people who work at the college and all these different, from all sorts of parts of society come together. I would go to those leadership classes having no idea who to talk to, having no idea what we were going to learn about, but just knowing, hey, at least I'm here, at least I'm meeting people, at least I'm growing those relationships. We finally were able to pick a church name. So one of the crazy things about starting a brand new church is there's so many things about a church that I for the first 26 years of my life took for granted. Right? Even just the fact that my church had a building, even just the fact that my church had a name, that my church had some sort of a brand in the community. And so we had the opportunity at Living Stone to start from scratch and pick a church name. And you ask, well, how do you even begin to do that? Just quickly, I'll share with you. So what we did was we took hundreds, if not over 1,000 possible church names, and there was about the 15 of us, me and my family and our core group, and we each picked about 12 to 20 of them that we liked. And we said, well, which ones kind of popped up similarly? Which ones did you like, and which ones did you like? And, Pastor really likes that name, but we don't really like that name. I really like the name Rock of Ages, but they're like, I don't know about that. I really love our name, Living Stone. And anyways, what we did was we came up to about 5 names after that. And so we went out and we surveyed the community and said, well, which one of these names does Conway like the best? Because we want to say that Conway picked our church name. And actually, secretly, all of us in the core group, we liked Living Stone Lutheran Church the best. And that's exactly the name that Conway picked. So once we finally had a name, then we're still worshiping at this Holiday Inn, and it's a space, I don't even know, maybe the size of this space right here, really not big at all. Where are we going to worship? For the longest time, we thought that we were going to maybe have to worship in a gymnasium or maybe a dance studio or something like that. And I had been looking at all this commercial real estate, like storefront properties and all these things. And you know how things are these days, people list properties online. And so you go on the real estate websites and typically everything is just listed there. And we couldn't find anything that seemed good. We couldn't find anything that seemed big enough. Couldn't find anything that was either of those things, but within a reasonable price range. Until finally, I went to an elementary school and met with their principal and tried to find how could Livingstone serve this elementary school and how could we get involved with whatever volunteer opportunities they might be there. And oh, by the way, could we worship in your gym? And see, what she wasn't sure about that. She had to get back to me. But I left that elementary school, and I was driving down a road that I had never driven on before, and in this strip mall, there's just a random sign that had a phone number that said for rent. And it turns out that our current landlord was so old school that she refused to put her listing online. She said, the only way I'm going to let someone rent from me is if they call my phone number. And so I called her, and she asked me what we were, what kind of a business or organization we were. I said, well, I'm a Lutheran pastor. We're a Lutheran church trying to look to start a brand new church. And she just kind of timidly said, Pastor, please don't be offended by this, but Lutheran, is that Christian? Because I don't know all of y'all's communities or what, but there are 2 Missouri Synod churches in Conway, but people in Central Arkansas don't know what a Lutheran is. And maybe that was an extreme example, but I got to share with her that we are a Bible-believing, gospel-focused, free forgiveness and grace through the blood of Jesus, that's the kind of church that we are, and she couldn't believe it. She could hardly even believe that kind of church wanted to rent from her property. And so she actually cut the price because of the kind of church that we were. And so we got the space. I actually think I might have left out a picture of our space, which is silly. But anyways, so then once we started actually having a space, once we started having a name and a logo and branding and all these wonderful things, now we can start to maybe try to sow those gospel seeds. So the biggest festival in the state of Arkansas, does anyone know from Lowell, what's the biggest family festival in the state of Arkansas? It's got this crazy name. It's called Toad Suck Days. Toad Suck Days. In Conway, Arkansas, the biggest family festival in the entire state. What it is Toad Suck Days historically, like about a century ago, was kind of like your Mardi Gras or your St. Patrick's Day. It was just an excuse to do debaucherous things. And the city of Conway got wise and said, what if we put a branding spin on this thing, and instead of it being this bad thing for our community, what if we made it a family event where now all the little kids, they do toad races and they train their toads to hop quickly, and it's just and so we volunteered at the Toad Suck Day 5K, 10K. That was our first event that we volunteered at Livingstone, just hoping that people would see us and notice us and, oh, there's a new church in town, trying to scatter seeds. As we decided to start doing outreach in Conway, we met with our marketing consultant, which is a a lady named Grace Ungemach from a company called Lutheran.Marketing. It's kind of a new company in our synod, but Grace is a Wells pastor's wife, and sort of Grace's job, her full-time job, is to run this Lutheran marketing firm. She does excellent work. And so I met with her, and we went through this marketing plan, if you will, called the buyer's journey. And really what the buyer's journey is how does someone go from not knowing a single thing about Livingstone Lutheran Church to now becoming an advocate for Livingstone Lutheran Church? How does someone go from not even knowing our church exists, from not knowing the Bible, from not knowing Jesus, to now there's someone who wants to invite their friends to Livingstone, who wants to share Jesus with their family, who wants to share God's word with the people around them? And not that, right, gospel ministry is not an equation. You can't plan out those kinds of things like it's a step-by-step process expecting that it's going to work that way every time. But we figured if we don't have a plan, then exactly that. We have no plan. And so we ought to have a plan. And so what we did was we tried to think of people in our community that we'd like to serve. And really what we came to was the unchurched and de-churched, especially the people who are maybe newer to Conway, especially maybe people with younger families. Now, the funny thing about that is, isn't that what every church is saying? Doesn't every church say, oh, we want the new movers, oh, we want the young families, oh, we want the de-churched and the unchurched and all these things? But what we came up with was what's the best way to take someone who knows nothing about Livingstone Lutheran Church and to get the chance to share about Livingstone Lutheran Church with them? And the idea that we came up with was, well, it would probably be a good thing to spend some time with that person, and it would probably be a good thing to sit down with that person, maybe over food, or maybe have some music, or maybe have just a social setting where people that we had never met would be willing to come and just hang out with us and spend time with us and have conversations with us. And so we came up with this thing called Food Truck Night. And Food Truck Night was a night that we did 4 times this summer where we solicited like 2 or 3 food trucks to come to our church building, that we would have live music, that we would have a big old bounce house for kids to play in, that we would have tons of yard games like cornhole and giant Jenga. And anyways, Food Truck Night, God blessed us, and we were able to have over 100 people come to each of those Food Truck Nights. And these were all people, for the most part, that we had never met, people that we had never seen, people that we didn't know at all. And it's not like all of a sudden those hundreds and hundreds of people started coming to Livingstone Lutheran Church the next Sunday. But it gave us the opportunity to scatter the seed of those relationships and just see what God might do with it. As a part of one of our food truck nights, I'll come back to that maybe. As a part of, by the way, is there like a specific time that I need to be done? I don't even have my phone on me. I do want to leave time for questions at the end.
I would say if you're scheduled through 1:45, so you could probably have a couple extra because they're like 10 a.m.
And what time is it right now?
I
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Then I will talk about this. Another thing that we implemented through Lutheran.Marketing and Grace Ungemach's company is this idea of not just a church newsletter, but maybe a church newsletter that would provide some kind of a service to people. And what Food Truck Night ultimately, the service that we tried to provide for people in Conway was to have a place where families could come for genuine family-friendly fun and to meet new neighbors. Conway's a fast-growing city, so there's a whole lot of people moving there. They don't know their neighbors. They don't know their community. One thing that I learned through the class that I took through the Chamber of Commerce is that people love to live in Conway. They love to go to the restaurants in Conway, but they feel like there's not that much to do in Conway. Like there's not a lot of entertainment or things like that, and that's probably a good thing because sometimes when you think about entertainment, it can be things that you don't want in your city. But for us, how can we have family-friendly entertainment where we can not just meet people for the sake of Livingstone, but where we can provide a space for neighbors to gather and get to know their neighbors? And so one thing that we do through my devotional newsletter each week is it's called the Conway Connection. And what I do is I scour Facebook or I scour the Chamber of Commerce, or I scour whatever local resource I can find, and I create a list of events going on in Conway each week for the community to learn about. I guess you could say I'm like a middleman who tries to just tell people, hey, did you know that such and such, Tarleton State's playing the University of Central Arkansas in football this weekend, and there's this Biketoberfest bike ride in the mountain bike trail over there. You should go. Or there's this cool live music event going on over here. And at first that sounds so random, like, why would you do that, CJ? That's not ministry. You're not. But what we're trying to do is offer a service where we can connect with people who might not know each other. And by the way, at the end of each Conway Connection, where I talk about different things going on in the community, there's about a 400 to 500 devotion attached with that. So just trying to find creative ways for us both to meet people face to face and have conversations with them, but also to plant those gospel seeds as well. One of our food truck nights also served as a school supply giveaway. So that was something that we identified. Our church is right next to a local middle school. And actually one of our members of our core group, he teaches at that local middle school. And he said, hey, Pastor, a lot of the kids at my school, they just don't have the school supplies they need. They just don't have the binders they need. There was even like one particular kind of binder, you might be able to picture it. It's the cloth binder that I think like middle schoolers use, where it's maybe just a higher quality binder so that middle schoolers can keep all their papers and files in the same. And the kids at his school just couldn't afford those, but the teachers were requiring those. And so we said, well, maybe we can fit a community need here through the help of Christian Aid and Relief. And so Christian Aid and Relief actually supplemented us with a grant to partner our food truck night with a school supply giveaway. So the youth group from St. John's in Newburgh, Wisconsin, they actually came down to help us run this school supply giveaway, and we were very blessed by it. Another cool thing about that mission journeys from St. John's is these were high school kids, and their pastor said, hey, let's put them to work. What can we do? And I said, well, there's a few things. I said, I have one idea, but I don't know if your youth might be up for it. He said, well, what's that? I said, well, how about just knocking on doors? And the youth were all for it. And so these high school kids got to come down to Arkansas, and maybe it's because they knew that they were never going to see these people again. Like, I'm from Wisconsin, but they actually canvassed for us, and they talked about Food Truck Night and the school supply giveaway, but then also our launch service coming up in September. So we were blessed to serve 80 families in our community with school supplies and get to know them. Leading up to the launch service, you can think about like doing the 5K at Toad Suck Days and having food truck nights and the school supply giveaway and canvassing, right? These are all a part of raising awareness about Livingstone Lutheran Church as a new church in the community, trying to invite people to come to our launch service and to check us out as a new church. And so a part of our outreach was just to do that by knocking on doors. And so Bob Courtway Drive is where our church is. So our church is right here. And if you look up around, all those houses have been built in the last 5 to 7 years. All those neighborhoods. And so we were pretty surprised. There was one evening, it was before one of our food truck nights, and I knew that we were maybe going to have some of the high schoolers come out canvassing with us. And so I said to my wife, Lauren, Lauren, if I'm going to make these kids go out and knock on doors, I should go do it and just test the waters because, well, maybe you've heard this, but like in modern America, it's not always the most well-received. It's not always the most welcome thing. So many people with no soliciting signs. Maybe you are even someone who has a no soliciting sign on your front porch. And I remember the day vividly. I was eating dinner early at like 4:30 in my living room, just talking to my wife, saying, Lauren, I'm afraid. Like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go knock on doors. Like, there's a knot in my stomach. Earlier that morning, we had seen on one of the local Conway Facebook pages that there was a young man who was riding a skateboard, actually not too far from his house, who got hit by a car and needed to be flight for life to Little Rock. And we even heard the chopper fly over our house earlier that morning, sorry. I was sitting there afraid, this close to not going out. And I said, you know what? Just got to be brave. Just got to figure it out. So I went and started knocking on doors, and first couple of doors, like, nobody answered. Had a few opportunities to talk to people and discuss some things. And then I knocked on this one door. And it's like a 22-year-old girl with tears already in her eyes. And I said, hey, I'm Pastor CJ over at the newest church in town. Can I talk to you? She says, Pastor, my brother's in critical condition. This morning he was hit by a car while he was riding his skateboard, and he's probably not going to make it. And so I got the opportunity to sit with that girl and pray with her right there on the spot. And to say to her, you know, I can't imagine what you're going through right now, but I would love for you to come hear about Jesus at Living Stone. I'm not even joking, I was this close to just saying, I'll try it tomorrow. Seems so random, the things that I had done. Seems so random, all the plans that I had made. Frankly, I just wanted to go knock on doors so that I could tell the kids from St. John's Newburgh that we had already done some of it. And yet, the big S sower was sowing his gospel seed. We also had, I'll back up a few steps. Kind of like what I was saying at the beginning, where when you move to a new community and you don't have an established church to serve, you're just trying to find ways to plug in and to meet people. And me and my wife, we love coffee. I used to just like Folgers, but my wife has shown me the world of good coffee. And I pretend to like the good coffee. Actually, I'm like a sucker for pumpkin spice stuff now and all that stuff. So we went to this local coffee shop. Well, we checked out all the local coffee shops, and actually it's kind of interesting. Our favorite local coffee shop is a coffee shop run by one of the local Pentecostal churches. And it is always packed with people. And their church grew so large that they had to move outside of town, but they said, we don't want to lose our presence in Conway, so they opened up a coffee shop in downtown Conway. So they said, well, we really like this coffee shop, and it was the one that we were going to a lot, but let's be honest, like, a lot of the people there were already Christians, already believers, already churched, and belonged to this Pentecostal church. So we started checking out other coffee shops, and we came across this one called Demir Coffee. And we would go in at first like once a week or maybe sometimes twice a week, but we really got to start to know the owners, who were a couple like our age, TJ and Krista. And they had started this coffee shop from the ground up. And they had done this thing to kind of, I guess you could say, raise awareness about their coffee shop, where they started this Demir market, where it's a farmer's market, although it feels like these days farmers markets aren't farmers markets because they never sell vegetables or it's just like... But this is a lot of like self crafts and crocheting and thrift clothing and stuff like that. But interestingly enough, I've never seen a farmer's market where so many college students go to. Like, if you go to this farmer's market on a Saturday, pretty much everyone there is under the age of 30. And not that that means anything, but it's just like, wow, what a gathering of young people. It's really fascinating. So we started to go to this coffee shop more and more. And we started to go to the Demir Market more and more. And finally, Krista, the wife who owns it, said, hey, CJ, why don't you guys just come talk about your church at Demir Market? I'm like, well, what do you mean? Just like walk around and hand out flyers? She's like, no, like set up a tent. And this is somebody that doesn't go to Living Stone. I had the opportunity to share some things about the gospel with her before. But now she wants me to come advocate for my church at her market. And so we got the opportunity to do that twice in the months leading up to our launch. We also had to make a decision at Living Stone that although Conway is the city of colleges, we can't make our full mission effort starting a campus ministry. It's already challenging enough to start a brand new church. To start a campus ministry is even more challenging, especially because, I don't know about y'all, but and the colleges in your communities, but there's no Wells kids going to the University of Central Arkansas. There are no Wells members at the University of Central Arkansas.
One of the colleges was United Methodist, right?
I'm sorry?
One of the colleges there is a United Methodist.
Yeah, and one's a Baptist. But on the campus, so University of Central Arkansas has a 12,000 undergrad population. So it's a big university. So we were thinking, how could we start a campus ministry on the public school, UCA? And so they had their freshman orientation, and honestly, I felt kind of like a weirdo just sitting there with my QR code and iPad. And so then I wised up and I said, okay, next time I go to UCA, I need one of those spin to win things. So you can see spin to win, to try to entice them to come. All right, you see it and you're like, I want to go spin. But then the week of our launch service, UCA is kind enough that for $25, 3 times a semester, you can set up a table. Any local organization can set up a table in their cafeteria. And so we did that the week of our launch service, trying to hand out candy or just trying to have people come hang out. And anyways, fascinatingly, there wasn't really that much traction. People didn't want to come talk to the pastor. People didn't really want to come spin to win. I felt so weird and random. Like, what am I doing here? Finally, in the weeks leading up to our launch service, we did a food drive, which maybe you've heard of these before, where the paper bag drives, where you go and you do the 3-week thing where you set out the paper bags, and the next week you pick them up, and the next week you thank them. So we had another Mission Journeys group come from Ascension Lutheran Church in Rochester, Minnesota. They came down and helped us with that, and also helped us with our launch. And we were a bit discouraged because not that many people donated. We did have 30 bags donated, but we tried to. We dropped off paper bags at 300 houses. But then even for the people who donated, what we really wanted to do was, have that conversation to share about our new church with them. But many of them would just leave it at the door and maybe text us and say, hey, you can just pick it up, and don't worry, we're not going to come outside, or we're not at home. And so it was fun to do, and it was fun to do it with the Mission Journeys, but it didn't necessarily seem like something that was going to produce much gospel fruit. All of my presentation up to this point is just to say we have been trying all these different things, right? Seems like a number of things just to throw paint at a wall, just to see hopefully that God would use some of this to accomplish his mission, that hopefully somehow someone would want to come visit Livingstone, or maybe come to a Bible study, or even just reach out to me or somebody at our church just to have this small chance to share the gospel with them. And I think nothing was more random than this. So Lutheran.marketing and Grace Angamak, what she did, she said, what you should do is, for your launch service, you should run Facebook and Instagram ads. And so this is the ad that we ran. It's just a 7-second ad. Oh, is it not going to work? Oh, here we go. Might not work. Well, it's a 7-second ad. If you click it on the computer, would it run maybe? All it is it's just drone. It's these words, New Church in Conway, launching September 28th, and it's just drone footage of downtown Conway for about 7 seconds. But the cool thing about Instagram and Facebook is at the bottom, there's a little tab that's not on this screen. It's okay if it doesn't work. It probably is not going to. Where they can click sign up to learn more, and it just populates their name and phone number into the app and then files it away for us. So people are willingly giving us their name and phone number just to be reminded about this launch service. So it's literally just a 7-second ad, New Church in Conway, with a cool little drone thing. And then we ended up getting 70 names leave their name and phone number to get a text message the day before on September 27th to be reminded about this launch service. I thought, what's more random than that? And I texted the day before launch. I'm sitting there in my office just texting these 70 numbers, inviting them to our launch service. And I think maybe 1 or 2 people texted me back. Pretty much nobody got back to me. And I think even the people who texted me back, they didn't show up to our service. Just felt like scattering seed. The last and final thing that we did to advertise for our launch service was this flyer on the right. We sent 9,000 postcards to homes in Conway to say, hey, it's a new church in town. On the back it had like a what we believe and what we're about and that kind of thing, please come visit us for our launch service. Just seeing. If somebody would randomly get this in the mail, what would happen? Well, that September 28th came, and here's the crazy thing about starting a brand new congregation is it's so easy for that first Sunday to feel monumentous. Like it's so easy for that first Sunday to feel like the finish line when I had to keep reminding myself and our congregation, this is the start line, right? So much of the effort that we did was focused, laser focused on that September 28th Sunday. And, we did things like, I think we ordered like 100 kolaches and donuts and stuff like that. And we had you saw those balloons of me and my family at the beginning. We had a cool little photo booth and we had gift bags to give to everybody. And there were fun things that we did about it. But at the end of the day, it's just a Sunday. It's just a worship service where we get to share the gospel. And that's what it was, but we had no idea what to expect. We knew that there was probably going to be somewhere around 30 to 40, somewhere around there, of Wells guests from our sister congregations in the area, from Missouri, from even Kansas, from Arkansas, from Texas. And so we were blessed to have about 30 guests from various sister congregations join with us on Sunday morning. But the Lord Jesus blessed us with 96 people in worship for our launch Sunday. And it was really a wonderful day with a whole lot of faces that we had known, faces that we didn't know. Our estimation is that there were about 30 Wells guests and about 40 Conwegians, 40 people from Conway. And maybe around 40 of those are unchurched, 30 to 40 of those were unchurched. But here's the crazy thing. This guy with the big biker beard, you've seen a picture of him before. He's my assistant football coach. And this guy right here on the far end with his Bible, he's in the Chamber of Commerce leadership class with me. And that girl right there in the middle, she just randomly had a conversation with me that I totally forgot about when I set up a booth at the college. And this guy right here in the middle, he's proudly our first Bible information class student at Livingstone. He was just my 18-year-old neighbor that I read a book about being a good neighbor, and it made me feel guilty that I didn't know any of my neighbors. And so out of guilt, I forced myself to go meet my neighbors and learn their name. And he asked me about myself, and he said, "Oh, you're a pastor?" He said, "Can I study the Bible with you?" And so about once or twice a month, he comes over and sits in my kitchen, and we go through Bible information class together. And Aiden, he's been coming on Sundays. It's felt so random, right? So much of the first year of ministry in Conway, Arkansas felt like, what in the world are we even doing? I'm not serving in the way that most pastors serve. I feel like we're trying all these ideas that sound really nice, like something like a food truck night or a school supply giveaway or even setting up a tent at a market. That sounds really cool, but in the moment it can feel like, what are we even doing? Because we're not right there and then necessarily having conversations about Jesus, and we're not right there and then seeing the fruits of our labor. But the sower sows his reckless love. That's exactly what Jesus does in all of our ministries, in all of our communities. We have no idea the people that we have conversations with on a daily basis. What does Jesus say about us? He says, "Let your light shine before others." Why? So that they can see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. We have no idea whether it just be going to the grocery store, going to the brewery, doing something in our community, or even doing an intentional outreach effort at our church. Jesus is recklessly sowing his love, moving heaven and earth itself so that some might be saved. And it's really just a pleasure to watch God do what God does and using us, even despite our weaknesses and our fears and our anxieties. Here's an example of our Connect card. So there's a big emphasis in my home missions coaching that we do to make sure that you get everyone's contact information and to find different ways of how can we get people's contact information. So we have an iPad out at our table and we have a QR code up on the screen. and we have a Connect card. And then they say, as a last resort, if you don't think you've gotten someone's contact information, quickly pull out your phone and say, hey, would you? Well, the launch came, and remember, we had like 40 guests come and join us for our launch service, that just floored us. We couldn't believe it. But you know what? Almost none of them, maybe like 2 of them, filled out this Connect card. And so you know what I did the whole week after our launch service? Sat there kicking myself, like, CJ, you should have made a better announcement, or you should have provided another way for people to, because yeah, that was cool that those people came, but many of them were people that I had known from those different areas of life, and I could reach out to them, but some of them, I don't know, maybe I'd never see them again. But it's the sower who's sowing his reckless love. And so we've been blessed for the past 2 Sundays. Well, I can't go back, but that's okay. We've been blessed for the past 2 Sundays. So this upcoming Sunday is only the 4th Sunday at Living Stone. We launched 3 weeks ago. So we had that big launch, but then we had 12 guests the next Sunday and 10 guests the next Sunday, and about half of those each Sunday were first-time guests. And so we were tremendously blessed to have that. As we launched, we also kicked off our first ever children's ministry program, I guess you could call. So the Wednesday after our launch, we decided to do this, to start our weekly Little Pebbles Bible story time. And what Little Pebbles is I give a brief 5-minute devotion. We sing Jesus Loves Me or God Made Me or a little song like that. And then there's a lady in my core group who she worked for decades as a librarian and did story times for her library. And so she's awesome. She dresses up. So the first time she dressed up as a teddy bear, then she dressed up as an apple, and then this past week she dressed up as a worm. And so she dresses up in these costumes and has these puppets, and the parents love it. And so we do that for about 10-15 minutes, and then we just give moms and families the space to mingle and have some snacks and some coffee and play with toys and color. And we've been blessed to have about 5 families come to each of those. And now 5, that might not sound like a lot, but most of those families are people that we've never met before or people that we have recently met, but we're trying to grow those relationships with. And here's where it all ties together. I sent out this is how random gospel ministry can be. We put an advertisement on Instagram thinking, well, who knows if anyone's ever gonna actually give me their name and phone number? Like, who does that? Well, there was a family that gave their name and phone number, and I texted them to come to the launch service, and they never came to the launch service. And then, next thing you know, that next Wednesday after our launch service, we had Little Pebble story time. And there was a family that we had never seen before that came to Little Pebble story time, and they loved it. But we had never met them before. We had no contact with them. As far as I knew, that I had never texted them or anything like that. And then after Little Pebble story time, they came to our second Sunday service, and after the service, they walked up to me and said, "Hey, Pastor, we have our baby girl together. We aren't married. We've been living together. Will you marry us?" And so last Friday, Living Stone had its first ever wedding. It was just my wife and I and them 2. And now we're going through marriage counseling with them. And they want to take Bible information class. And they came back to Little Pebbles. And I don't know, or at first I had no idea why. I had no idea why they came to Little Pebbles, other than maybe I figured they must have seen it somewhere, seen it on Facebook because we did some Facebook ads or something like that. And then just this past week, we're looking to start Bible information class at the end of October. And so I was going through the Connect cards from the past Sunday. And this family that I had married, they had filled out a Connect card and said they were interested in Foundations class. That's what we call our Bible information class. And so I text this family thinking that I'm texting them for the very first time. And I type in the phone number on the Connect card into my iPhone and realize, what in the world? I've already texted this person before. It was one of the people who left their number on Instagram and that we had invited to the launch service, but they didn't come to. But they must have stuck with us on social media and decided to come to Little Pebbles. Next thing you know, they decide to do the godly thing, even though they're living together with a child outside of marriage, to come together in marriage before God. And now they've been to Livingstone every Sunday ever since, and they want to take foundations class and continue with marriage counseling. You kidding me? The sower sows his reckless love. And it's the same thing that he does for you and me, right? Why should a random guy from Houston, Texas, who grew up far away from, Wisconsin or anything like that, like why should I go to a Walsh church? Why should I learn about God's word growing up? Why did I go to the schools that I went to? Well, it's because the sower was sowing his reckless love. For all of you, I don't know how you've got plugged into the local church that you're at. Maybe you've been a lifelong Walsh person. Maybe you haven't. I don't know what your story is. But ask yourself, why am I blessed to know the gospel? To know my Savior? To hear God's word proclaimed to me each week at church? Like, why am I? Because the sower sows his reckless love. And that's really what we do in mission work, is we just are the hands and feet of Jesus. And so I was able to write a blog about this just recently, and maybe you read my blog, and so this is maybe kind of cheating. But in my blog, I said that all the outreach that we did leading up to our launch service, and really the whole ministry for me in the past year of my life, has really felt like, I said, throwing paint at a wall, or maybe at best, just totally scattering seed and just having no intent as to where it's going to land or what's going to happen. That's what it feels like. It feels so random. But that's why it's not my ministry, and it's not my church, and it's not even really my work. Because if you think about that picture of the hand throwing seed, maybe that's what it feels like for me. But for Jesus and his elect, for Jesus and his children, by God's grace, this is how Jesus sows seed. Very carefully, very intentionally, one seed at a time. We're blessed at Livingstone Lutheran Church in Conway, Arkansas, to be part of a small way that Jesus does this. But for you in each of your congregations, for you in each of your ministries, and really for you in each of your lives of discipleship, although Jesus is the one sowing the seed, you get to be the hand that he uses to plant it. That's all I got. But I do want to leave time for questions for you guys. Thank you so much for letting me be here just to talk about, it's funny, I was privileged to present at the Lwms convention 2 years ago in La Crosse, and it was it was a wonderful experience, but what was so funny to me is that my presentation was just to talk about my vicar year, and I said, well, really? They want me to just come talk about the last year of my life in front of the Lwms? Fine, I can do that. And lo and behold, here I am again to try just talk about the past year of my life. So thank you for the opportunity to share this with you, and hope that you might have been blessed by it. Does anyone have any questions?
What is the attraction for Conway? Why is it growing so fast?
A few things. So it's really a wonderful community. It's just nice. It's a great place. They have a really good public school system. The kind of college town atmosphere kind of brings some vibrance to the city. Like, people do complain about the fact that there's quote unquote nothing to do there, but that's not really true. There are fun things to do, and maybe more importantly, the industries there are attracting talent. So there's a lot of IT companies there. And so when you have IT companies, and then anytime you do have 3 universities, you are attracting young people to come to college and to go to a town for 4 years. And so now when they graduate, let's be honest, a lot of people say, well, I don't know where else to go. I guess I'll just try to find a job in town. And but yeah, Conway has a lot of different variables going for it. But the Chamber of Commerce would tell you that they are in an arms race for talent. And so they are spending millions and millions of dollars to try to keep young, bright, best secular business people into their town, and apparently they're doing a good job at it. So, great question. Any other questions? Yeah.
What do you think is your best outreach tool that you have tried?
So there's personal witnessing, and then there's corporate outreach as a congregation. I was so blessed to have such a ramp of personal relationship building. Like the mission, home missions told me, spend your time by just getting to know people. And so for me personally as a Christian, that has been my greatest blessing as far as outreach, just to have the time and to be afforded the time. Now, not every pastor has been afforded that, and I'm quickly learning now that I'm a real pastor, I don't have that same time anymore. But for me, and for our people too, actually, I can't believe I didn't give you the right answer to this question. The right answer to this question is Lauren Fury, my wife. She's the best. She, like, a lot of the young families that are coming to our church is just because my wife has befriended these mothers. On the flip side, for a corporate outreach thing, I'd say the food drive seemed to be kind of something that could really be beneficial wherever you are for a number of reasons. But one, it lets you talk to people. It lets you speak with people face to face. But then also what it does is it kind of raises your brand, if you will, or raises your community's awareness of you as a compassionate, loving, Jesus-centered church. Where, Christ the King is doing a food drive. They must really love people. They must really want to show this community some love. So that's what I would say. But also, I think we're also to the point where we're so young and so new that I probably couldn't even give you a super accurate answer either. But thank you for that. Does that help or?
Yes.
Okay.
Very much.
Yeah. Any other questions? At the seminary, they taught me this rule. They called it the 7-second rule. That if you ask a question and you don't sit there silently for 7 seconds, 7 seconds in, someone might go, no, I'm just teasing. But
Question, on the food truck?
yeah, food
You
truck.
ask them to give discount rates as to what they normally would do,
No.
since you're a nonprofit church type thing?
So that was the neat thing for us. The only reason why we could do food truck night is we don't have to pay a dime to the food trucks.
Right, okay.
However, we learned it's a huge balancing act, because if we didn't spend some money on advertising and if we didn't have people come, then the food trucks would never come back, because they're expecting to go to this event to make a profit. And so they would just have their typical prices. But it's just one of those really it's just a strange psychological phenomenon where if you say to somebody, hey, we have a bounce house, come hang out at it, no one's going to come. But if you say, hey, we have a bounce house and 2 food trucks, they want to come, even though they probably could have the exact same food just in their kitchen that evening. But it just, that crazy thing, I don't know if y'all have experienced this, but I'm a sucker for food trucks. I was like, food in a truck? That's awesome. And so the food trucks come for free, but then there was one time where we did have like 100 people come, but not that many people were buying food. And they kind of got mad at me. But I just said to them, it's not necessarily our job to give you clients, but they weren't happy with the business that they had done that evening. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Did you have a question?
Did.
Yeah.
What can we as other guests do for you and your family and the mission? But what about you and Lauren? What do you guys need?
That's a great question. As honestly as I could answer it, the thing that's been, I think, the most challenging for us is a lack of community. And actually, it was a blessing from God, because that really spurred us towards, all right, we need to find some friends, otherwise we're going to go crazy.
Do you think you're introverts? Was it a struggle?
Here's what's fascinating. I would say that the two of us are naturally extroverts. But you know what's so fascinating? I always thought I'm an extroverted, social, friendly guy. I love my friends. I love hanging out with people. I love going to like social things. But you know what? I had only done that at Martin Luther College and Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary and Luther Prep, where 30 of the same guys that I went to high school with went to college with me, and 15 of those same guys went to... And so, yeah, I love my friends, and I'm a super sociable guy when I hang out with people that I've hung out with for the past decade of my life. And so a part of that early part of my ministry was learning how to be a normal person and like how to make friends in the real world and how to be sociable that way. Like, it's a challenging thing to move to a new city and say, all right, let's make some friends. So I'd have to get back to you to have a really good answer to your question. It's an excellent question, and I know the heart that it comes from. Obviously, the things that y'all already do, such as prayers, such as encouragement letters, such as financial donations, those are huge blessings. And that's the kind of thing that would kind of roll off my tongue to you, but I'd have to think about your question maybe a little bit more deeply.
You talked about your kids. If you would send out their cards to your kids, what are their birthdays and how old are they?
So Evangeline's birthday is February 2nd, and she'll turn 2. And Japheth's birthday is April 27th, and he'll be turning 1. And Japheth is like Noah's son in the Bible. Crazy thing about Japheth, he was 2 weeks late. And I don't know if you remember April 14th this year. April 14th this year was Palm Sunday. And so I promised our core group, here's what I said. I said, even though we're not worshiping super regularly, we're going to do Palm Sunday, Maundy Thursday, Good Friday, and Easter this year, unless my son's born. And I thought in the back of my head, there's no way we get through the end of the week without him coming, because he was 40 weeks on Palm Sunday. Well, he didn't come, but it was cool because he was our first baptism at Livingstone too. So, but thank you all for the time.
And Pastor Perry, when you get the answer to that last question about what we can do to help you, if you just tag on to your Zooms with Mr. Eckendorf, get that to me. I'm in the building. When he's talking to you, I'm in the building.
Okay, so you're listening to everything I said.
No, I'm listening to
She's
you.
supervising 3-year-olds, maybe sleeping. Thank you.
All right. We are going to have a quick 10-minute stretch break. So I show 1:54. We will be back here at 4 minutes after 2. What was that? I see a hand. Okay, a couple announcements. We're still going to be back at 4 minutes after 2.
You may have noticed on your tables when you were dining this afternoon, some of these gifts, these favors. So please pick up one to take with you. They're scattered around the different tables. If you have someone that you would like to take one home to, feel free. We've got plenty of them, so please take it. It's got a Bible verse on the back. Also, over by the kids' care presentation, there are some pieces of paper like this so that you can make your own collection boxes if you want to. You can't get them anymore from LWMS. You have to make your own. They give you the pattern. So I put them on cardstock so you can take them home with you if you would like them. Please feel free to take as many as you want. And then also on the registration table, there is information about a retreat that Missouri Valley, the ladies around St. Louis are having in Missouri, in Lincoln, Missouri. So there's information about that. There's one sheet that has directions, what all it is, and then another form that is the registration form. This is going to be held November 14th and 16th down in Lincoln, Missouri. We'd be able to meet with other LWMS ladies circuit. It's a good time, we've been there before, some of us have been there before, and it really is great. If you're interested, on the registration table.
And it's on the western side of the state, even though it's organized by those ladies. It's really, you know, for me from Harrisonville, it's like an hour and 15 minutes. So it's not too far.
And if you haven't already signed up on the registration forms, please do so that we can have attendance. If you would like to take extra rally folders home with you for some other ladies from your congregation, please feel free to do so. Oh, okay. Donna's got the attendance forms.
Has everybody signed in?
Okay, great.
Good. All right. 4 minutes after 2.